Welcome back to our deep dive into the Leica M3. It's pretty amazing how this camera has transitioned into the world of color and digital photography, considering it was designed for black and white film.
Yeah, it seems kind of counterintuitive, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
wouldn't a purely mechanical camera feel totally outdated in the digital age?
You'd think so, but it's actually the opposite. The fact that the M3 is manual focus and doesn't have any automation has made it even more appealing to a lot of photographers today, especially those who really want total control over their images in a world where everything's automated.
So it's like a rebellion against all those fancy features on modern cameras, like
Yeah.
going back to the basics of photography.
Exactly. It's all about rediscovering the craft and slowing down the whole process. And one of the things that makes the M3 so versatile is its lens compatibility. It works with pretty much every Leica M lens ever made, even the ones they make today.
Wait, really? So I could put a brand new lens on a camera that's over 70 years old?
Absolutely. And the results are incredible. It's like bridging the gap between different eras of photography. Plus, with a simple adapter, you can even use Leica's screw mount lenses. So you can use all these vintage lenses from the 1930s and even earlier.
That's so cool. It's like having a time machine for your photography. You could experiment with so many different styles.
Exactly. One of the sources even recommended sticking with lenses that have 39mm filter threads,
Is there a reason for that?
mostly for practicality. If all your lenses have the same filter size, you don't have to carry around multiple sets of filters.
That makes a lot of sense. It's all about keeping things simple and focusing on taking pictures. Did any of the articles mention any specific lenses that worked really well in the M3?
Yeah, there was one that stood out, the 35mm f2 Summicron. Sometimes they call it the goggle lens. It was designed specifically for the M3, and it has special optics built into the lens mount that work with the camera's rangefinder.
So you don't need to use those external finders or the goggles we talked about earlier.
Nope, you can just keep the Leicameter on the camera and still frame your shots perfectly.
Speaking of the Leicameter, it seems like that's a must-have accessory for the M3, even though it's not built into the camera.
A lot of people consider it essential. It's basically a light meter that attaches to the M3's shutter speed dial, so you can get really quick and accurate exposure readings. It's almost like having a built-in light meter, even though it's separate.
So it takes the guesswork out of choosing the right exposure.
Exactly. The Leicameter takes into account the film speed you're using, and it automatically calculates the correct exposure settings for you.
That's really cool. It's like having a personal assistant for your photography.
Right. And one source mentioned that the Leicameter can calculate exposures as long as 2 minutes, which is something most modern cameras can't even do.
2 minutes. Wow. That would be amazing for long exposure photography, like capturing the movement of stars or city lights at night.
Exactly. And if you want even more control over your exposures, the M3's shutter speed dial is infinitely variable.
Infinitely variable. What does that mean?
It means you're not limited to just the standard shutter speeds on the dial. You can set it to any value between those markings.
So you can fine-tune your exposure to get the exact look you want.
Exactly. It's like having a custom-made shutter speed for every shot.
Wow. That's incredible. Now, what about close-up photography? Can you do that with the M3?
That's where things get a little interesting. Because the M3 wasn't originally designed for close-ups.
So how did people do it?
Well, Leica, being Leica, they found a way. They released a special version of their 50mm Summicron lens that had a closer focusing distance.
And I bet that's where those goggles come back into play.
You got it.
Yeah.
When you use that close focus Summicron, you have to attach an auxiliary lens to the viewfinder, just like the ones used for wide-angle lenses.
So even though the camera wasn't built for close-ups, they still found a way to make it possible. It's like they wanted to give photographers the ability to shoot anything.
Exactly.
Their ingenuity is pretty inspiring.
It really shows that Leica wasn't just building cameras. They were creating tools to help people express their vision. And I think it proves that the M3, despite its age, is still incredibly relevant to photography today. Its enduring power is all about simplicity, quality, and ingenuity.
That's a great point. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. Lens compatibility, the Leicameter close-up capabilities, and we've really only scratched the surface of what makes this camera so special.
That's true. There's still more to explore. In part 3 of our deep dive, we'll take a closer look at the heart and soul of the M3, its precision engineering, its legendary durability, and its impact on the history of photography.
I can't wait. Stick around for the grand finale of our Leica M3 deep dive.